Hello, welcome to chemistry lesson 1.02. This is on decimal shift method. How do we convert between metric units by just moving the decimal? So we talked about in the last lesson about the fact that we have the metric system, which differs from the English system. The English system are things like quarts, inches, gallons. And the metric system operates very differently. So what we have in the middle is we have this base unit. And we talked about the fact that base units can be kilogram, or can be a gram, can be meter, can be second. We can also have liters, although we said liters is actually a derived unit, but we, in a sense, we work with it as if it's a base unit. And so what we're going to do when we do decimal shift, as we move to a bigger unit or a smaller unit, because the metric system is base 10, all we have to do is shift the decimal. Now this works really well. If we look at our prefixes, as I go down, I have deci, centi, and milli. And as I go up, I have deca. Usually deca is written with a capital D to differentiate it from the D in deci. I have a hecta, and I have kilo. And in Latin and Greek, oh, my kilo kind of got lost there, didn't it? In Latin and Greek, these prefixes mean 1,000, 100, and 10. So deca and deci both have are associated with 10, these are associated with 100, and these are associated with 1,000. So we know that there's 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. That's something that hopefully you've just remembered from other classes, or that there's 1,000 meters in kilometer. We know that there are 100 centimeters in a meter. So if you take a meter stick and you look at it, it's divided into 100 hash marks, and each hash mark is a centimeter. Now, we have other units that lie above and below. So what we'll see is that above we will have, or let's go with below. So with below here, I might have nanograms. And we'll use charts to help us for these, but 1 nanogram is 1 times 10 to the minus 9 grams. So a nanogram is really, really small. Or I could have a megabyte, so or a megagram. So up here I could have mega, which is capital MG, and that's going to be equal times 1 times 10 to the, I believe it's the 6th. I could be, hope I'm not incorrect about that. I think mega is 6 grams. Now, this decimal shift works really well when we're between kilo and milli. So when we're between here and here, decimal shift is the way to go. When we get out here to nanograms and megagrams, if you go to decimal shift, if you start up here in kilograms, you're going to have to shift that decimal 9, 10, 11 times. And it gets to be very, very limiting. So for our purposes, decimal shift is going to be the method to use when you're between kilo and milli. But if you're outside kilo and milli, you're going to have to show me what's called dimensional analysis, where you're going to have to do conversion factors, and we'll multiply and divide. So on the test, I won't accept decimal shift for nanograms and kilograms, but between kilo and milli, and that's where most of our metric conversions lies, between these two, you can do decimal shift. So if we look at, it doesn't matter if we're doing whatever unit we have here in the middle is our base unit, gram, meter, whatever. So you'd have kilometer, hectometer, decameter, meter, decimeter, centimeter, millimeter. Or if it was grams, same thing, kilogram, hectogram, decagram, gram, decigram, centigram, milligram. One of the tips that I have students use is a little mnemonic. So when you start off, if you haven't done this in a while, I recommend you write your prefixes from left to right. So the first thing I'm going to encourage you to do is to write your prefixes from left to right. I'm just going to abbreviate left to right there. So I have kilo, hecta, deca, base. I just usually leave a dash there, or you could write base, deci, centi, milli. We'll put base in brackets. Well, one of the tricks is, how do you remember kilo, hecta, deci, deci, centi, milli? So we have what's called a mnemonic. So for this, I'm going to tell you to use your mnemonic. And that mnemonic is King Henry died. Let's do a capital D there. King Henry died. Pause. Drinking chocolate milk. And that helps you remember your KHD, pause, DCM. So we'll just do KHD, pause, DCM. So if you don't want to write the whole thing out, you can just do KHD, pause, DCM. What you're going to do then, step 2, is you're going to look at your problem. Bring this over just a little bit. You're going to look at your problem, and you're going to put one hand with the hand with your pen on the decimal in your problem, and the other one on your letter line. So we're going to use the pen hand method, is what I call it. It sounds a little silly, but this creates a little bit of, it's called tactile. You're touching as you're converting, and it really does help students. So you're going to be doing these conversions all the way through chemistry. If you come to physics, we'll be doing them in physics. So make sure you've got this down now. All right, so what do I mean? What's this pen hand method? So I put my pen, convert 296.013 meters to millimeters. So I'm going to write this in pencil because I'll erase it when I'm done. So I have meters here. Oops. So these are all I put my base here, so kilometer, hectometer, decameter, meter, so on and so forth. So with this hand, I'm left-handed. I'm going to put my pen on my decimal. And on this hand, I'm going to put my pen where I'm starting from. So I'm starting at meters, and I'm going to millimeters. So every time I move my finger, so if I go from here to here, I move my pen from here to here. So I go meter, decameter, centimeter, millimeter. And I put my decimal into the new place. So if I convert 296.013 meters, I have 296,013 millimeters. Maybe you don't need to use the pen hand method, because maybe you know that there are 1,000 millimeters in a meter, and you just know that you're going to shift your decimal to the right. I find a lot of students don't know how to do it this way, and by setting up your line here and putting your pen here, you're always moving. When you move them, you're always moving them in the correct direction. All right, our next one, now this is a comma. It's 296,013. That's a comma, not a decimal. And let's erase, this is grams, just to show you that this works for everything. So now my base unit is gram. Kilogram, hectogram, decagrams, grams, and a gram, milligram. And I have got, I'm going to rewrite it over here, 296,013 milligrams. And I want to go to kilograms. Well, what do? I don't have a decimal here. Remember, the decimal is always at the end of the number. So my decimal's here. And let's see, this is going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to use my thumb this time. So I'm starting at milligram, and I want to go to kilograms. So when I go milligram to centigram, I move 1. Centigram to decigram, to gram, to decagram, to hectogram, to kilogram. So 296,013 milligrams is 0.296013 kilograms. Or if you know that you would have a 6-shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you just know that in your head, you may not have to do this. But again, I find most students do need some kind of reference. All right, so that, to sum it up, we talked about the fact that the metric system is base 10, and all we have to do is move the decimal every time we want to convert. I recommend making this line. You can use your King Henry Dyed mnemonic, and then use the pen hand method where you have your pen on one hand on the decimal, and you move the pen the same direction as your hand goes. Eventually, you can just stop this. You'll just know it by heart, hopefully. But that is all we have for this one for 1.02. Thanks for watching.